Hello, and welcome back to the Badger. I'm the Badger guy, and I have some news. Our Joburg and Cape Town events went really well. We had a fantastic turnout, and we're truly grateful to everybody who came through and supported us. It was great connecting with all of you in person. Thanks very much. But now that those events are wrapped up, we're excited to bring you a full breakdown of our new features. We initially live streamed the Joburg event, and we're going to keep it up to rewatch, but it was decided that we would film the Cape Town event, and I have edited it down into a more easily digestible video, if you will. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, and thanks for being here.
Not sure I have a game face. I'll do my best. Whilst we wait for anyone else who might come, a lot of people don't know what the badge is at all. Is that right? There's a couple of people that do who are users, but others brand new. So I'll just take you through quickly what it is. The Badjr is it's a technology based on MikroTik. So basically, we start off as a firewall. The MikroTiks configure MikroTiks and whatever, and we realized they're quite challenging to configure individually. So we built a management platform that manages them at scale. So in order to do that, what we effectively did is follow the ubiquity route, and we went and said, well, let's put a controller in the cloud that completely manages the device. You design your entire infrastructure in the cloud. You say, well, for example, this device must have these bridges assigned, these network ports assigned, these kind of WAN links, and the WAN links must fail over in this way, and that sort of thing. And you end up with effectively a description or a complete view of your site. This is here as a site dashboard, a complete view of your site as seen from the cloud perspective. And then the device itself becomes largely irrelevant. You never really log into it. You still can if you want. But ultimately, this is actually your view on that piece of infrastructure. So to take you through, you've obviously got your overview page, and in this page, we ended up expanding the technology to sort of include user management, client management, contact details. So you end up with your contacts here, so you can manage your client end to end via the product. But this is where it all started on the site dashboard. On the site dashboard, you obviously got your documentation, contacts, a little bit of information, some statistics on what's happening on site with regards to the actual device itself. And then down here, your critical on-site devices. So from an admin perspective, including information like where the client is, then you can route from any of your offices, you get travel times, and you can start to offer a high level of service. I'm going to breeze through this quite quickly because a lot of people know, but we can always do, you can chat with Aidan or Dan afterwards and get a more full demo. We can come out to your offices and do a more full demo of this side of things. But basically, your documentation on that site and how it pertains to how you're going to service them. So standard operating procedures plus anything specific about that site, you can just include in your documentation. This is the monitoring side of things where we have a view on what devices are on site. From this perspective, you can see if they're up and down. You can again document them. There's a full credential manager which is available via this mechanism over here, where you can pop in credentials. Those credentials are fully audited, so whoever views those credentials, it's noted in the audit log, so you can understand how sort of those credentials have spread. But typically, you don't really view the credentials. It's more a copy and paste. So if you go here, you basically load the password, you copy it, you paste it where you need it, and off you go. So it's less visible. It's just more a way of managing credentials without having to store them in your browser, which is a big issue, as well as any other kind of password management system disparate over your network. So this is the on-site device management system. From here, you can remotely log into any device on the network, RDP. And we'll do that a little bit later, so I can give you a bit more of a view on that. So then, from a LAN perspective, this is where you describe your LAN. So just to be clear, you come here and you design your LAN completely. So you set up the IP, the ranges, what DNS is going to be servicing. You never log into the actual device itself. You set up your static DNS records. If you've got VLANs or anything else, you set them up here. Wireless networks become ubiquitous across the client, so a single client can have multiple sites. You set up the wireless network for the client. It then spans to all sites, and it spans to all unified devices on that site as well as MikroTik wireless devices as well. So it effectively allows you to for your clients to run around all their offices and just be completely connected all the time, which is really great without having to have different SSIDs per site. So that's managed from this stage. This is the Badjr statistics itself. This is where you set up for the more technical people. Your bridges, what are your WAN links, what are your LAN bridges and other VLAN bridges and all that sort of thing. And then you get statistics on your device over here, CPU usage, what version it is, and there's a full management system behind the actual device itself. We move on to the most interesting side, which is effectively one of the most interesting side is the networking. So the WAN networking. So basically, in your WAN networking, you set up your multiple WAN links, and then you can do a whole bunch of stuff. Again, this is all in software. So you effectively say, well, by default, the network just routes out here. There's only one link, but we want the voice to go out the other link. We want it to have LTE primary. If it fails over, fail back to the fiber, and you can select the traffic based on source IP, traffic types, destination IP, and a whole bunch of other things. So you can really segment your traffic that's coming out of your network, as well as have individual failover strategies for each of those streams. So this is the WAN link and WAN streaming side. Again, you don't configure the device at all. You draw it in here. You set up your traffic selectors, and you just apply it to the device, and that's it. So if your device goes bang on site, just explodes or hits by lightning, just adopt a new device, and off you go. So again, you're not really logging into the MikroTik to do anything important. So if we go back to today, so we covered the WAN. You've also got, this is quite a useful graph. You can see your WAN link over time. Again, last hour, last day, last week. This was completely offline. Then it came online. This is your latency and how. If you get little red lines like this, that means your link is a little bit unstable. There's some packet loss, but ultimately you can see this link is quite stable. That's great to screenshot and just send to ISPs when they give you grief that they're not that their link is fine, and it's really not. You can also do individual speed tests on each of the links. So this is quite useful because often your failover link is not in use, therefore you don't know if it's down. So this will tell you actually if it's down, and that contributes to the alert board, which tells you exactly what's going on from a critical device perspective. If any sites are down, any of your failover links, if they're degraded, all that sort of thing is covered here. And if you've got this up in your remote support center, then you're seeing exactly, this should obviously be clean. So as soon as something pops up here, you address it, you go and top up data, you phone the ISP, you get someone to reboot the server on site, whatever happens. So that's quite a useful page to have. Okay, and then lastly, the site-to-site VPNs. So site-to-site VPNs, for those people who have ever configured on a MikroTik, are quite challenging. So we removed all of that. Basically, from a site-to-site perspective, that's what it looks like in a complicated fashion, where you can basically draw the links between all the sites. And that's what it ends up looking like in practicality. So we've got multiple sites. We've got these 3 sites connected in a diamond, but you can also add a connection here, down there. You can connect in these other ones that are down. It tells you if they're up or down, and then it tells you what LANs are exposed over the site-to-site VPN. So if you're sitting here, you can access any of the networks over the site-to-site VPN. Again, all designed in software, so you don't really configure the device at all. So that's just a brief overview of where it is, or where it started. The platform itself has expanded quite dramatically to sort of manage end-to-end client management. So if all your users are loaded, all your clients are loaded and sites are loaded, you've got a full view on who this person is to you. So if you've got a remote support center, they live in this platform. If someone phones in, you're doing a quick search up here. Who phoned in? That's me. Darren phoned in. You're on the user database. You're on the user, and you know who this person is and whether they can phone in. And that leads into something I'm going to talk about now. All right. So any questions on that? Everyone get a kind of idea. It's a very quick run through. I'm sorry about that, but yeah. So it's always tough when you've got a lot of new people because a lot of people don't understand. So let's move into the next. Yeah, I mean, so just to clarify that, it works on any Microtech, so we don't sell hardware really. If you want it, we'll sell it to you, but really it's taking any Microtech off the shelf and you just deploy it. It works very similar to any kind of adoption system. You put it online, it tells you, you design the site, you put the device in, you adopt it, and then you take it on site, drop it off, and it just works. So that's the process behind it, and that's the demos we can do for you later. There's some branded devices over there you can have a look at later if you want as well. All right, so we've come quite a long way with the software and the technology, and we've deployed apps. We've got apps in the App Store to manage the technician side, to manage the user side. But we start to look to the future, and we think that the future is going to be made up of a couple of things. Security is going to be absolutely critical. Now, obviously the security of the device is fine, the security of the network is fine, but what about social security? Not like American social security, but security of who's phoning in, what rights do they have, are they allowed to call you, do they know who they're talking to? When they phone you, do you have rights to answer them? Can they verify you are who you say you are, or if you phone them, right, back? So these kind of questions become like, especially with a lot of social engineering, what's going to happen if a person gets fired? Is there an offboarding process? Offboarding process obviously leads directly into here, so that person can't phone in the next day and say, hey, listen, I need access to this drive and I've lost my laptop and the hundreds of stories that you hear. So physical security is one thing, but social engineering is a big factor, and it'll become more so. Why is it going to become more so? Because of AI. So that AI, you can start to ask questions about specific companies and say, tell me who's in this company, who's the account manager, who's this. If that information is publicly available, then AI will know it and will be able to answer you, and then you can engineer off the back of that information. In the old days, you'd have to scrape yourself. You'd have to scrape LinkedIn. You'd have to scrape all these places to find out who's who in the zoo, so you could make a convincing case to engineer your way into that organization. That's no longer going to be the case. Service. So around service is going to be, that to me will determine one of the determining factors in terms of the winners in the MSP space. So how good is your service going to be? When someone phones you, are they going to get helped? Are they going to be looked after? That is going to be a critical factor in terms of those people who come out on top and those people who lose, because it'll be quite easy to switch. And then the last one I've touched on already is AI. I'm not going to talk about it too much now, but that discussion will happen towards the end as we go through the presentation. So we identified a problem in terms of, back to security, in terms of access to networks. So we want to grant, and we're talking about cloud networks as well, networks in Azure and AWS, but also site-based networks. So we've got a problem with existing VPNs. They're hard to configure. I say that because 90% of the times your ISP is in the way. They have a route in front of you that they refuse to pass access to. They just don't pass VPN traffic for whatever reason. Sometimes there's security. As you know, IPv4 is running out, so a lot of ISPs are starting to share IPs between networks, which means when you're connecting to that IP, it actually services 10 networks behind it that you have got no idea. So they can't forward the ports to your device, so you've got no route in. And that's becoming quite a problem. Also, multi-site. The issue around multi-site is that you configure VPN per site. So now you've got to connect 4 VPNs if you've got services on multiple sites that you need access. This is an issue. It's hard to manage. Password management across those is also different because they're effectively different sites with different users. And then once you're on the VPN, you've got keys to the kingdom. So you're effectively inside the network. You can see the entire network and you can access it as if you were there. So that's a remote attack vector that needs to be understood and can be problematic. So we decided to re-engineer this side of the technology with the ZeroConf Global VPN. And I'll take you through the key concepts that we did, that we built to make sure that we addressed all these issues. So one VPN to rule them all. So per client, you then get one VPN. You connect, and it connects into the Badjr private cloud, and that then controls all routing to all sites and access to all devices. So you then have the ability to just connect in and then secure what that VPN can access. Because we control the endpoint, then the ISP doesn't matter anymore. So the Badjr, if those people use Unity a lot, you could always access your site. Doesn't matter what file was configured. You don't need the DMZ, the Badjr. You don't need to do anything like that. If the Badjr is connected, you can log into remote devices via Unity. You can see statistics. You can see monitoring. It's all available. There is really, once the Badjr is in place, there's no impairment to your access into that network. We leverage that same technology to provide the VPN access inside. Granular access. This is quite a critical side of things. Basically, once you're connected to the global VPN, you get to select per user what that user can access. So that user's either got access to that site, these 3 sites, only that device, this VLAN on that site, or all sites. So you can really go to town in terms of giving that user granular access to your network. Again, not keys to the kingdom. I'm going over this now, but I'll give you a full demo shortly.
And then just to touch base on that granular, just something that we forget. The reason why we've started building that is a lot of you guys, you work with a printer company or a phone company externally sometimes, and you actually want to give them access to Always Assist, but only give them access to the 1 or 2 printers from outside the network. And that allows you to do that. So they can have permanent access to the 2 printers, but nothing else on the network, for example, or just the phones, everything of that. So it really segments that network quite nicely.
It links quite nicely into the phone side of things because you can VLAN off the phones, and then you can grant access just to that VLAN to that one user that's coming from the phone company. And then it's 0 effort to install. So ours is a 1-click install. You effectively run a file, and it installs the whole thing for you, and you don't really see any of the configuration. All right, so basically, I'm going to take you through a install of that. I'm going to switch to a Windows machine because it's easier and it's more relevant. So we've seen the site-to-site VPN. So basically, this is a user and that we've set up as a demo. This currently doesn't have the Badjr VPN installed, and we're going to now configure the Badjr VPN and grant access to various devices and then test that access. So you effectively go here on your user, you enable it. Once it's enabled, you get to configure it. Basically, by default, it's got full network access. So we decided we don't want to have network access. So we're going to say this person can only access, say, on-site device, the cloud server, this one here, access that, and maybe another on-site device, say, the Ray that's sitting on site. Okay, cool. We know both those devices are up because the Badjr tells us that, so we're good to go. If we go back there, you can now see it actually tells you what the description of what's being able to access. So we're now ready to go. That's the configuration. That's all that's required. We then okay, fine. We need the installer, so let's set that up. By the way, the installer, we've got a Mac installer and we've got a Windows installer. So we're going to install this. Okay, so once it's installed, then we have you'll see now that it's just available on the VPN connection list. So if we go down here where you would normally connect to VPN, there it is there, and you connect. Now you need your username and password. That's available here. So here's your username over here. You copy it to the clipboard, and then move back to that. And you can just pick your password up here as well. Again, we don't need to see the password. All right, so that's it. You're now connected. Probably should have seen it this way. Okay, so you're connected now. Now we can just check if we got access to those sites. So let's have a look at the devices. We should be able to RDP to the James Cloud server. So that's that server there. and you're on that device. So that's the only server you've got access to, as well as the web access, but that's the kind of VPN control. Now that obviously is sitting on one site, the array is sitting on another site, so you can then pick and choose the devices. And that is as simple as that. That VPN can remain running. Only traffic destined for that device will travel over the VPN. Everything else goes through a normal VPN connection, which is great. You're limiting traffic, so it really doesn't slow down the person's network connection. So you know by default, Windows VPNs typically route all traffic over there. That doesn't happen in our case. It only routes the traffic destined for that destination. And then you can access the array device as well. I won't go into that now. That's the ZeroConf Global VPN. Any questions around that? None? Is it straightforward? Cool. Does it solve any problem that you guys are currently experiencing? Now that's great, because that's what we want to do. We had to solve problems and build tech for that. So, all right, cool. So the next side of things I want to speak about is the integrations that we've done. So basically, we know that in order to provide great service, we need to be integrated into third-party suppliers. So we've done work on the ESET integration, Euphoria integration. Got a lady from Euphoria here. Great voice of our IP company, by the way. Good service and great tech. So we like integrating with that. So we've created integrations into Euphoria and ESET, and then we've linked it into the way we set up the services that we services and supply functionality in Unity, and we're going to take you through that now. So basically, inside Unity, if we go to suppliers, and we say, okay, find the ESET supplier here. So you set up your supplier. For those people who don't know, this is just a way for you to manage all of your suppliers, client codes, phone numbers, who to phone. You've got full documentation on how to interact with the supplier, who the contact people are there. So this is the way where you set up. You also got management portals where you can add your portals and your credentials for accessing those portals so you can interact with the supplier. So I won't go too much into that, but in terms of what we're doing is that we say, okay, fine, this suppliers, now we can integrate them into an ESET integration. So this is set up separately with API keys and all sorts of things. But ultimately, what that does allow you to do is then to start to query ESET. Now, unfortunately, obviously, there's sensitive information here. So I presented a couple of where's this one? Okay. Just screenshots for you. So once integrated, you get this integration panel here where you can map your clients to tenants inside of ESET. So once you have that, ESET's API is not fantastic, but it gives you enough information to say you've got 16 licenses there and 15 are installed. So you either paying for that license yourself or you're billing for a license that you haven't installed. So you can sort that out. And it gives you a one-to-one mapping between all your ESET tenants and your internal clients. This gives you then on your client page an actual ESET tab where you can go and see this kind of information and log directly into ESET's control panel from there. So this is our ESET integration. I'm going to show you why this is important in a little bit. We then go into the Euphoria integration and we do the same thing, and you end up with this kind of control panel where, again, you can pick and choose your clients. You can see what extensions are rolled out. You've got access to their credentials. You can see whether they're online and what kind of access they've got, whether it's a mobile app or a headset or a physical phone, and then the ping time on that extension. So this is great in terms of people phoning in and you understanding how they're connected when they're saying their voice quality is terrible. So this is quite an important one. And again, if you go onto the client's control panel, this will be available to you for easy troubleshooting. We spoke about levels of service. If you can get quick answers, you can see there's crappy latency on a particular extension. You can answer the questions easily, and you get the person to either move closer if they're on Wi-Fi or a whole ton of options. But without that information, you're kind of dead in the water in terms of trying to solve it, other than can you turn it off and on again. All right. So the reason why we found that to be important is because it leads into another section of Unity, which is defining what services you offer. So here is a list of services that is currently offered by this fictional company. So we ADSL accounts, antivirus, business process management, and you can define this for your own company. So you go in here and you list all the services that you provide. The question is, which service do you provide to what user, to what client? And you can see here is that a service is quite key because it links the supplier and the service to the client. And if you go in here, like pick a client, you can see here, this client here has got these services enabled. All right. This is quite useful because if someone phones in, go, what do we do for you? We do antivirus, we do domain hosting. If you don't supply them antivirus, then you don't have control over their licensing, so they might have an issue you cannot solve. If you don't have the connectivity, you might have to phone an ISP, or if you give that to your client to solve, you say, listen, we don't do your fiber lines, we don't do anything. So this is a list of services in terms of, one of the key ones is that if they don't offer remote support, if they haven't paid for remote support, you can't offer it. Again, you can't, if you don't have contractual obligation or contractual cover to log into someone's machine remotely, and you do that, now you're in trouble, because they can basically come at you. They say, well, you logged into my machine, you had no rights to do that, they're not covered under the contract. Right? So Badjr is pretty much the physical site, the physical device that manages on site. Unity is this is more like process management, so it's built more into Unity. We don't really distinguish the two too much, but ultimately, yeah, this isn't provided by any hardware. This is really about administrative stuff, contractual liability, and that sort of thing. Again, where we believe the future will sit as technology becomes more and more abstracted. And we realized this when we built the Badjr. It was an amazing piece of tech, but ultimately we actually need to, ISPs or MSPs need to be much better and bigger than that, than just the technology they deploy. So when it comes to this, we go, say antivirus here. Now we come to the interesting part about antivirus, is that what about how to manage the antivirus, how to manage this particular service that you do. So we introduced the concept of frequently asked questions. So this is a way where you can add a frequently asked question, say, how do you install ESET? Okay. So this is going to be a supplier, it'll be install, it'll be potentially onboarding for the user. Here is the answer. So by linking that to a service, you now have at your fingertips, this is all versioned and you can see who wrote it and everything like that, and it's printable, but you've now given your support technicians the ammunition on how you want things done, which is quite important, as opposed to them choosing randomly and next thing they click this wrong button. Like ESET is not so much these days, but in the early days, if you didn't disable certain firewalls, your mails just stopped working, like 50% of the time. So you just have that as a standard operating procedure. Now, why that's important is because if you go back to the client and you say, if this person has antivirus, then all of a sudden under the docs page, you can see how do you install ESET. So the information ends up right where you want it to be. So to make sure that you can get at it when you need to. The other option is, of course, once it's in there, is you can then search for it. And then you're on the page and you can print it, read it, whatever. So there's really a lot of access to get access to your facts. Now, FAQs can be tied to suppliers, to services, and globally. So if you have standard operating procedures, then you can sort of apply them globally. Now, just imagine if you document accurately how you do things, onboarding a new staff member becomes easy, like really easy. And it also links into something that I'll talk about later around AI. So I've showed you how to service setups, and I've moved straight into the backbone of any kind of service, which is knowledge. The more you know, the quicker you can service. So either it's knowledge about the client, knowledge how to solve their problem, knowledge how to do things correctly, and that's where we start to speak about FAQs. This is quite important. Appear where you need them. That's quite critical. There's no point in having information buried somewhere deep in your archives and you can never get to it. So it's searchable, it's relevant, and it's updatable, and you can see the history of the FAQs. All right, I'd like to call up, sorry, that ends. Any questions around FAQs? we're going to just do that after Guardian, and I'll do that. All right, so I just want to call up Aidan to just speak about his project he's working on, which isn't released yet, called Guardian. All right. Awesome. Where's it?
Awesome. Yeah, so morning everyone. Yeah, so as you saw, the Guardian. And so it's essentially, obviously, as it stands now, the Badjr has fantastic features, and obviously we strive to keep, growing the Badjr and Unity, and making the software and the Badjr itself even much greater. And along with that, this has actually been a project that I've been working since last year November. And the Guardian it's developed or going to be developed. It's actually still in work in progress, but we have developed a fully functional working dashboard, and we'll go through that now in just a second. But the Guardian is not just, well, it's actually a DNS black hole, but with a bit of brains. So what the Guardian does is it is aggressively blocking websites the way you would want it. So there's no more workarounds, no more compromised, like corporate infrastructures. We have to kind of, find or figure out how you would block websites and applications, services, aggressively. So along with that, with the dashboard, you'll find exactly the Guardian groups and the Guardian status. So the Guardian lives within the Badjr itself, and it's quite simple. So what you would do to first start off, you would have to create your Guardian groups. Now, the Guardian groups consist of two types, which is obviously a blacklist and whitelist. That's what you expect from a blocking service. So creating the groups just kind of distinguishes them within that space. And with the groups, obviously, you can name them either via either a SSID or alternate LAN IP address that you've got exposed within the network. So that just perfectly segments them for you. Obviously, you can then see the Guardian status, which will just show you if the Guardian is currently active and running within your Badjr. And then we'll add some extra statistics that you can pull from it, so you can see the current uptime of what the Guardian is running at and the memory usage. Now, we do have actually like a prototype that is running in the field, and it is doing immensely well. It is blocking at least 77,000 entries within a span of an hour, and it is running at like 2.1% of usage. So the impact is significantly low, and it has been proving to do actually a very good job. But with the Guardian groups, if you can go to the next slide. So Guardian groups, you would need to have a couple of things. First off, you would need a source, because you need to specify the group. What is it? Where is it going to block? What is it blocking? And you have two other things. So there's two of the three things that you would do, that you definitely do need. It is a source, and it is either a destination or a set of categories. So with the Guardian sources, if you go to the next slide, that's actually the categories, my bad. Anyway, so just to tell you guys about this, okay, so the categories are essentially it's curated categories. So you'll find at the top there's a bunch of different tabs that has different types of services, or like for example dating sites, adult content websites, messaging and community platforms, live streaming stuff, and it's all of the more frequent used applications, so stuff like TikTok and so on. But these obscure applications, they aren't as popular, but as they start becoming more popular, we'll add them into those categories. So it's just easier to select them, because along with these websites, especially like TikTok has multiple domains that run across pretty much all over the world. I mean, they've got, I think I've calculated just over 80 different DNS queries that run just to access a video. So as soon as you open it, you would need to block it. And that is what the Guardian actually does best. It is aggressively blocking those DNS queries that come through. It also does the incognitos. So anything that runs within the network and goes through the Badjr, the Guardian picks it up, it flags it, it finds exactly where it's coming from, and it blocks it. So, and after, like I said, we do have a prototype that is in the field. We've tested this with TikTok, because TikTok was actually the biggest factor. YouTube's quite easy because it's quite local, but then also stuff like your Netflix and HBO Showmax, things that aren't really based within South Africa. So those were actually the target points, and we've successfully done that. So with that, if you go to the next slide for me, please. you have, as you select your categories, so you'll see that the images are there, or the icons, when you start selecting them. As you save it, it will list them here as well. So it's just quite nice. As you go into that group and go to the categories, you can immediately identify which ones are currently being blocked, and instead of having just tiny words that you need to kind of, fish out. On the next slide, that is essentially what it would look like. So you'll have all of the icons listed for you from video streaming all the way down until the dating sites. And I just feel this actually looks quite pretty. So it's also one of the reasons why I did that. So if you could,
Put on your sales sheet.
yeah. So that was kind of the idea. But okay, so moving on to the next. So it is the Guardian destination. So like I said, there's 2 of 3 things that you need to do. So the source would be one, and we'll get to that in the next 2 slides. But you got your categories and you got your destination. So the destination is if you would necessarily want to block a specific website that you have found is more of a most used application in your office, or like a website like torrent sites and so on, you would have the opportunity or the ability to actually put that in manually into the Guardian. So the way you would do that is you would specify it with a name. So that name will be either the site that you're trying to block or the application. Your type would either be website, services, applications, or other, depending on what that other would be. But in this case, you'll have the type that is selected, for example, a website. Now, the domain allows you to add either a www.domain, a naked domain, or a wildcard domain, because wildcard domains usually just stretch out quite far because they attach with either not just www, but they sometimes run into, I think, www2. Whatever it would be, right? So the wildcard does that quite effectively and quite nice. And then the next part would be a regular expression. Now, regular expressions are set quite strictly. You can't just put in anything into that field. It has to follow the set of symbols in order to do the blocking correctly. So as soon as you've added the regular expression, so you can only do one of the 2. You can either do a domain or you can do a regular expression. It is unfortunately you have to do it one by one, but that just kind of separates them and segments those blockings quite well. So on the next slide, you'll see exactly what that looks like. So I have done Google, for example, as a naked domain. It is not enabled, for example. I've got Google then there as a regular expression. And for example, Cloudflare, you can see that one is marked as a wildcard domain, which is usually just defined by an asterisk. And then you have your naked domain as well for Cloudflare, which has also been enabled. So that is essentially how you would do that, because unfortunately the Guardian does not allow multiple entries all at once. It is something that I would love to, I will work on to have that, you can push in multiple of those, and I will just list them out for you quite nicely. But as of right now, it is only taking one entry at a time. But that is something I can definitely fix. But on the next slide, like I said, you need to identify a source. So this is actually the main thing that you need to do as soon as a Guardian group has been created. So the source, you'll find yourself that you'll have some options available, either IP range. So obviously IP range being either from a alternate LAN IP range that you would set a specific range, for example, for employee Wi-Fi or manager's Wi-Fi, whatever the case might be. And then you'll also find an IP subnet. So if you would love to, for example, create an alternate LAN IP address and you want to block that entire alternate LAN IP address, you can do that just by adding the subnet with a /24, /23, or whatever the case might be. And then you have the option to also single out a specific device. So obviously adding a device to Unity that sets it as a MAC bind. It binds that MAC address within the op table of the Badjr, and then you would have the ability to single out that IP address. Because the reason why I'm saying this is because we all know that Wi-Fi devices tend to swap MAC addresses. So it is difficult to single out that device just by an IP address, because things just come in your network, they go out of the network, and they hop around. Now, the way you would do that for a Wi-Fi device is setting it statically. But for LAN devices, you can single them out quite nicely and quite easily. And then the next section would be the MAC address. So you can then define that device by that MAC address as well. So you would have that option. So either if you don't set it statically, whatever the case might be, but you can single it out with a MAC address. But Wi-Fi devices tend to be quite tricky, especially when they start swapping around. Yes? Yes, that is correct. So if they yeah, no, 100%. I understand what you're saying. So I've actually tested that. So as soon as you add the device, even with the random swapping, there is still a unique identifier in the background that allows the thing to still single out the device. I've actually tested it with the Oppo. I've tested it with a Samsung as well. It does single out that device within the network because it's attached with that MAC address, and still in that history of that Wi-Fi, it is still there. So, and it actually, like I said, it does work quite well. So that was one of the factors that I was worried about, just because of the mere fact that the MAC addresses tend to keep swapping every now and then as soon as you disconnect and reconnect to the Wi-Fi.
But yeah. You can also look at your sort of deployment strategy for internet access. You've got the options with VLANs and unified controllers and whatever to actually say, well, there's guest networks, there's employee networks, there's administrative networks. So once you've got that segmentation out, they hop onto different either VLANs or IP ranges, and you can just then, doesn't matter what IP they have in that range, they will then be blocked or limited in some way.
Yeah. No, in this case, no. You won't need to do it unless you want to really, stack up a list of mobile devices or whatever the case might be. But you can, like I said, define them by a MAC address. So as soon as you define that MAC address, you should be able to block it 100%. Yes. Yes, that is true.
I think in practice, you're probably going to find that it's more done on the design level. So you give people access to different wireless SSIDs that will then control the restriction. You've also, Aidan's just completed the work as to be rolling out to production the next couple of days, where you can actually then bandwidth limit those wireless SSIDs as well across Unify and MicroTech, which would allow, again, so you've got full limitation plus site banning, and you just say, well, all employees get access to that SSID, and we know that it's a secure kind of environment as opposed to individual device-by-device blocking, and then say directors and those kind of people connect to a separate network, which wouldn't have these kind of restrictions.
Yeah.
It's in one place.
Yeah, so like I said, a lot of this stuff is still a work in progress. It is something that I'm very excited, working on, and hopefully bringing it to you guys in the near future. I would love to actually have it done, within a set time. And unfortunately, there is a lot of work still that needs to be done, especially on the back end side of things. And I mean, I'm quite excited to actually bring this to you guys. But I mean, just to finish off on the last slide here, as you add those devices, you can immediately just see if the source is enabled. I'm not giving you the option to really just, you can either enable it or disable it. In some cases, you can, I don't know, it's all up to you. You can decide. But you've got starting and ending IP addresses, your subnet, column, IP, and MAC address. You can still edit it and start changing things in and out. You can delete it. But if it's something that you would want to disable for the time being, you can always just come back, revisit, and then enable it again. But yeah, so I mean that brings it to that. I mean, the Guardian's been a massive work for me. I've really been putting a lot of time into it, and hopefully we can bring that to you guys quite soon. And that's pretty much it.
You guys are not on our WhatsApp group, so we've got a WhatsApp group per client. So you guys hop on there, you get access to our support technicians, as well as new releases we'll bring out, and we'll post them there so you know when they're available. You can upgrade all the pages, get the best versions.
Thank you.
Right, can we take a 5-minute break before we move on to what would be our flagship feature that we're going to introduce? We had to look at what was wrong with it. These long email chains with repeated information, and they just reply after reply after reply, and you don't know where the content is of what you actually want to know. Hell of a slow response. The world is copied, and once you're in a copy, you cannot get out of it. You can remove yourself for the reply, but then another reply comes back and you're back in it again. It's too formal. You got a banner. Hi, hope you're well, hope the kids are fine, all that sort of great stuff. Actual information you need. Kind regards, hope to see you soon. Signature. The signatures are just awful if you're trying to navigate information to figure out what the person actually needs. And the reply is also the same. You're sending back an information with signature. They have to navigate all that to figure out what you're actually saying. And who's the person I'm talking to? It's very informal. You're obviously dealing with a ticketing system. It feels like a ticketing system. It's crap. So what we decided to do is really look at the whole thing and say, well, if we didn't have this crappy ticketing system and this way of doing things, and we were to build it for the modern era, what would we do? And for those people who are the smaller companies who are supporting their clients, how are you supporting your clients? And I'm talking about not the ticketing side of it, but how you actually engage with it. It's either via phone or more commonly via WhatsApp. It's a chat-based system. It's a chat-based system that gives you direct communication. There's emojis, there's emotion. It's quite well developed in terms of connecting with people. So we decided we're going to scrap what currently exists, and we're going to build what we call Badjr Interact, which is basically a chat-first system, and scrap email support entirely. And we'll come back to how we can do that and what that entails. So basically on this side here, you have your technician or your remote support technician's chat. This is what he's doing. This is what your client gets. That doesn't say that's what they only get. There'll be web interfaces, desktop apps, and whatever. But this is what your client sees. He's talking to you directly in his phone. So full on what he's taking pictures, he's sending screenshots to you, he's doing everything that he would normally do that's comfortable for him while interacting with you. And at no point does he think this is a ticket. Like he's just got a number in the queue. It's instant. You message here, you reply here. So obviously everyone knows how to use WhatsApp. You know what kind of expectation there is for constant conversation, whatever. Behind it is the ticketing system, but it's completely transparent to the user. The user doesn't know they're in a system where you can track and report on and do metrics on and analytics and all that sort of stuff. That still exists, but the user just gets the chat experience where they can really interact with someone on a more personal level. And what that looks like in practice, and now this is what we do, we hopefully produce a fantastically well-worked live demo. So this is Badjr Interact. You get a bit of analytics, but most specifically, looks like a ticketing system. Those are your open issues. Okay, so this is where it starts to look a little bit more familiar. You've got what it's about, clients, who the end user is, owner. Now you notice that it's not like some random mail addresses. Because you, inside Unity, track all your users, you know who your users are. You know how to connect with them. You know if they've got the app installed. You know what their clients are. You can get quick access to the site. This links directly back to Unity. So when people message in, you don't have to guess what client they're from. It automatically tracks all of that. It's easy to edit. And then if you go into it, you get a nice dashboard, which gives you more comprehensive stuff, what the scope is, internet access, DSL. I'll go into these kinds of things in a minute, and then the actual chat as it exists right now. So let's have a look at the client experience. So this is the client. For those people who don't know the end user app, Badjr has an end user app. I'll go through it just briefly before we tackle on that. Tracks your on-sites that are due for today, which are scheduled inside Unity. If you want more information about that product, we'll elaborate on that. Sites, Wi-Fi passwords, you can scan, guest Wi-Fi, that sort of thing. I'm just doing a brief overview because a lot of people don't know that. But then we go to the brand new feature, which is support. So in support, you're effectively presented with what's closed, what's currently open, what's closing, and then you have the option to add one. So we're going to start up a new ticket here. I say new ticket, a new chat. It's branded with your own logo. So if you log in, this client is seeing your logo when they're requesting help. So I need some help. My Wi-Fi is broken. All right. That's it. Then they're in the chat. Now they're talking. All right. So from the technician side, he's going on this side. He's going, give me the unknowns queue because this is what you're watching, and you can see there they've popped up there. You know who they are, where they're messaging from, what site they are, because we know Darren is on that site, and what client they are. More importantly, in this 18 seconds. So if you're watching this, you're responding quickly to your client's requests. Okay, so this sits up on a dashboard somewhere where someone's picking up these. Now, I'm logged in as a technician, so I go, cool, I want to take that one. So I come here. I can see immediately what they're asking about. So either I say, I'm equipped to handle that kind of problem, or I'm not. But if I am, I'm going to take that issue. And that becomes me. Once I've taken it, I can now join the chat. And it tells you that I've been assigned this issue, and I'm joining the chat. So from a client's perspective, they're saying that I've been assigned the issue. So now they know who they're talking to. Let me just close these so that doesn't become so laborious. All right. So then I'm going to join the chat and start chatting with the guy. no problem. We can have a look. And I have to do this because I can. This is my. All right. And then they get that message. So now we really are in conversation with them. And as mentioned, that's the critical thing. I also have, as an aside, all the current things I'm dealing with. These are mine. These are my chats. So I don't actually have to even sit on the dashboard at all. I can just sit in chat. And by doing that, I'm speaking to the people. I can get a quick overview of what the issue is about over here. But ultimately, this is where I operate. And when I close off a ticket, it disappears from my chat. So here is really what I'm working on. And I can flip between the two of them, have discussions as a technician, and chat backwards and forwards. And the client is just getting a very familiar experience on their side, which is a chat-based system. So if we say, cool, we can drop images to them. To send it, that's good, useful. And there we go. So they get the full WhatsApp experience, and we're going to expand it to voice notes and whatever. But that is what it's all about. Now, like I said to you, is that you can operate in the issue space. We can just, let's go back to the dashboard of this ticket. And here comes the more interesting part, is that you're now sitting there, you've got the full history of the tickets, you can observe. Now, what happens a lot of the time is that more than one person is involved. So we talk about the CC option. From a client's perspective, more than one person is involved. Either there's another director or whatever, it's a more complicated issue. You can add additional resources to the chat. So I say, well, fine. It's not only, it's affecting James as well. So you can see here, James joins the conversation. So effectively, it's a group chat. From my side, if I decide that I'm not capable of solving this issue, I'd add an additional resource. I'm going to add Aidan. There he is. Where is he? I'm going to add Aidan to that. He then, from his side, joins the chat as well. Now, the client can see that one of his people's joined it, and Aidan. Now, Aidan can chat. We can all chat. He can see the full history of that, so he can quickly brief himself. So if you want something that's analogous, or an analogy to that, or a well-defined concept, if you're in a hospital and you've got your primary care physician, often they will call in a consult. I need a cancer specialist to come in and just have a chat, have a look. Cancer specialist come in, have a look, blah, 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 sits, and then leaves. Your primary care physician takes over. So it's a way to involve senior people in the chat. They can give a few pointers, they can see the full history, and then they can leave and let the primary support person take over. So it's a way of adding consultants to the chat and for them to be able to assist. And that's quite a key thing, because once they've assisted, you can then remove them. And you can also remove other people. So this is the whole concept of removing people that are no longer going to, add value. Once you're happy with that this issue is resolved, you can just request resolve. The client gets quite a nice message that says, demo site, that's me, that's my name, requested to resolve this issue if it still persists. Otherwise, the ticket resolves itself in 24 hours. Alternatively, you resolve the ticket, and resolves, and you can no longer chat in that ticket. So what the user then experiences is that they can see their closed results, they can see the ones that are currently closing, and ones that are currently open. So they're managing their own experiences, and sometimes you've got one person on site that manages all the problems, and everything triages through them or goes through them, and other times it's individuals that are contacting you, so everyone just sees all the chats that they're a part of. As I mentioned, you can add and remove members. So there's the initial request, and then there's additional members and everything like that. So that's the way of interacting with that. You go back to our issue interface, and you're seeing your normal kind of analytics. You can edit these directly from here. You can sort them by unowned. You create shortcuts for all of these, so you can have the ones that are currently open or active. The ones that you really want to look at are the ones that are active. Otherwise, you can see all your resolved ones and their full history. If you know the Unity system, is that you can mark a client as hot. This is what we would call the client is on the verge of cancellation or heading that direction because they're unhappy. They become hot. You can see them straight in your ticketing system. So you can say, I only want to see the people that are hot because those are and someone dedicated to take care of those hot clients to make sure that we cool them down after a while. You can cool them down, yeah.
How do you stop different agents dealing with the same issue, but to see?
So
I could log in, I need help.
Yeah.
But then my colleague.
At this stage, what I would suggest, okay, so it depends. That's more like a business management side, because it's all visible to everyone. You can have a look, and your support manager will typically see these are the same issue. And we're going to introduce things like duplicate merging of issues. Alternatively, just assign it to the same person, and they're talking with both people and say, listen, I am dealing with this. Whatever you could do, yeah. So we'll merge that in time, and these are more advanced features as we get down to that. But it's going to end up exactly like you would expect, where it becomes one chat, everyone with the same issue, and they're all available. So that's the whole. The big point is that, look, I'm going to close this ticket because I'm going to add you to the other one, and again, you can adjust your language. Close this ticket. I'm going to close this chat, add you to the other one, and then we'll just discuss it in the same one. I'll give you all updates. So again, it's that ability to bring everyone together. To communicate with them all at the same time. Then you don't have, but I didn't know it was fixed. But they do know, because it's in the chat and they get notifications. Obviously, it's got your standard features like push notifications and all sort of things. So if you've got it's like WhatsApp effectively. That's what we're aiming for, is a WhatsApp-based like user experience with backed by a proper ticketing system. Yep.
So this makes sense. So it's going to be a new app and number 4 for communication. What happens if the client sends out
So, it's a great question, and we're expecting that question. So we are of the opinion, like again, if you were to build a ticketing system from scratch today, and if you want to see how fast technology moves, picture what the world will look like in 2 years. There will be no email support at all anymore. So we will provide an on-ramp. In other words, we'll provide, say, a destination mail address where if you email it, it will appear as if you had opened it in app. So it'll detect who sent it, it'll open below, and it'll appear. But then we're going to push everyone back to the app. So there'll be no communication back via email. It'll be on-ramp only. And you say, well, there's automated systems. Sure. So the way we deal with automated system is provide an on-ramp email address that they can tell the automated system to send the problem to, whatever, problem description, as well as webhooks. So you can get it to just do a JSON request for the technical, hit a website, and that'll create the ticket for you automatically. And that'll be the way to get existing legacy systems to start interacting with the system. But ultimately, what you really want to do is, if a ticket of that nature comes in from an automated system, we'll probably end up by saying, if an email comes in to this address, then assign this person, like a predetermined person, to be the member of the chat who you're going to end up talking to, because obviously you're not going to end up talking back to the system. So that'll link the system and the person who's responsible for the system. So ultimately you end up chatting with them, and the system is just a way of indicating there's an issue to both parties, ourselves as the technicians, the client, and then the conversation is between you and the person who's responsible for that, getting that sorted out within the client space. Right? Take control. There will be. So you have to run. You say some of them will have pushback, yeah, initially, but eventually everyone will move. Like I said, I don't see if everyone has ever experienced support email is it's horrible. I mean, people would rather message. The other thing is that you must remember is that what people might experience pushback is that, well, am I talking to a human? So in this case, you are going to be talking to the human, and that'll become very apparent, and everything we build will be geared towards a human level of service. That's not to mention, I'll touch on the AI thing because it's coming, but how we integrate those two is going to be very interesting. Any other questions? Okay, perfect. So On the client side, there's often technical managers, and so I show you this. This is a technical manager a login actually. So the technical managers has access to the on-sites, the sites, the Wi-Fi, the users. So they're the ones that got access to all these little components. But if you log in as a regular user, you only see home and support and potentially on-sites, and that'll be able to be configured per client. So because obviously, if you go here, the Wi-Fi, you don't necessarily want people to access that Wi-Fi password all the time, but ultimately some clients might be small enough. They go, yeah, just give it to everyone, because then someone comes in, you want access to my Wi-Fi, scan this, and you're on the Wi-Fi. So that kind of usability is there. But other times, no, we don't trust our employees. We've got 400 employees. We're not going to be giving the Wi-Fi to everyone. Only the technical managers, the owner, and other designations within Unity get access to that. So that's the manager side. With regards to manager oversight, is the manager app will eventually, actually quite soon, this site will have two tabs where they can see all issues pertaining to the organization as well as their own issues. So they can then manage issues. They'll be involved in all the chats that they need to be to basically facilitate between because a lot of people have a designated person on site to manage their account, and they want to know what's going on. So they want to know all the on-sites that are coming, all the support that's happening, all that sort of thing. So with regards to on-sites, any other questions on Interact for the moment? So Interact is obviously, it's a brand new product. So we're going to be introducing all those very rapidly ticketing functions in the back, like merging tickets and analytics and all that good stuff. So you can see assigning across your technicians. You've got 15 over here, 2 over here. Let's give him more tickets and whatever. So support management kind of type of functions, and all that will happen, and you'll end up with a very pretty dashboard over here with lots of high-level decision-making type information, so that you can ensure that the influx of support calls is well managed. So just on the on-site assist side, so basically for those people who don't know, this is a bit of a rehash because we have had this product out for a while, but you can manage all your on-sites over here inside Unity. So if someone calls in, and I don't think we've rolled out the function to on-sites yet, so you can't request an on-site from the app just yet. But if someone calls in, you can say, fine, I need an on-site assist, and what happens is it comes in as a new one. So your scheduling team then gets this look and feel. They get all your list of technicians and the calendar for the day, the on-sites that have not been assigned anywhere, and then the on-sites that are currently in play. Green, this is done, that's in play, and obviously this is the current time. So what you end up doing is you're going, okay, this one needs to be scheduled for me. Okay, cool, but I want it about that time, and I'm going to save it. So that schedules that for me. So for those who don't know, there's a technician app as well. Download, it's called Badjr MSP in the App Store. Download that. Or if I'm a technician, all of my on-sites are there. That technician is quite straightforward. I see it there. I arrive on site. I click start. I do what I tell. It gives you in a lot of detail, and I'll actually just illustrate the detail that's available. List of on-site tasks, who the client is, who the affected users, their information, any kind of notes to the technician, all that sort of thing. And then just general status, but basically that's all available in the technician app. I can see what I need to do. I've got tasks. I can tick them all off one by one, provide work reports for all of them. Click when I'm done with all that, I click stop. I draw up a final work report, set my times and how long I was there, click start, and that goes into then billing. Obviously, if you guys have like unlimited support, it's probably more for record keeping, but most people don't have unlimited support, so therefore like on-site support. Therefore, it's crucial you get that timing right, because then you're billing against that time. So obviously, the manager on this side gets push notifications when you arrive on site, when you leave on site, and we're going to obviously integrate that a lot better so that the apps can communicate with each other. A lot of people look after warehouses, so the technician might be over there, and the person cares about it in the admin department over here. So they will need to communicate via app whilst they're there. Listen, before you leave, please pop in, whatever. And then you don't have to dish out technicians' telephone numbers and whatever. You run everything through a central system where you can track it, and again, often bill for it. where we're going with this as well, from the on-site perspective, it's worth just, you can see there my new on-site here, where I scheduled in 6 hours is this one at the bottom here. So that's what they're going to do on site. And again, this is the client-side app, but the technician app has got full functionality where you can modify and just start and stop and all that sort of thing. So I forgot what I was going to say, but that's the on-site function. And from the on-site, you can also then, this isn't available yet, but will be soon. If you stop your on-site, you say, listen, this person needs a new switch. From there, you can request straight into your procurement system. Hey, this person needs a new switch. Please, can you? And that goes into your procurement system. They have the same type of function. They're interacting with the same client. Again, back to the app, where the technical coordinator will take control. And you can, you need a new switch. Here's a quote. Accept yes or no, and you manage it through that. So you can manage that whole process end to end, any interaction with a client as you do it. And obviously, if you're speeding up against levels of service, but also it's capturing that spend. They're not walking to a credible connection to go buy a switch. You've got that spend. You want to keep it in-house to make sure that you're making gain the most value from your client's needs, right? So that's the support side of things. And you can see that we're quite aggressively on. Oh yeah, sorry. Just on the, you can obviously reschedule and assign to different technicians, and it's obviously fully managed. So this is quite a useful product in terms of managing your clients. So obviously it's very scant now, but if these are all your technicians, literally this is peppered with like full on. So you can see, because it's easy to manage 1 or 2 technicians. When you've got 10, you don't know what's going on. You can also segment them by territory. Cape Town, Pretoria, Johannesburg, whatever, so you don't send people to various places. All right, any questions about that? All right. So that's Badjr Interact. We believe it's going to be the cornerstone of what we do going forward. This is where it will be priced. Effectively, it's going to be customer-centric. So if you don't want to roll out to all your customers, you don't have to. But basically, if you've got 1 to 3 end users per customer, then they can get it for free, or we'll offer to you for free. If you on-bill it, that's fine. This is our cost to you as MSPs. If they've got 4 to 10 users, it'll be 75 Rand per month, etc., etc. So, yeah. So you're an MSP, right? So you look after 10 clients. Okay. So just choose one of your clients, whatever user category they fit into, that gets built for that client. So if you only assign it to one of your clients because they're big and they need it, then it'll be 31. Say it's got 35 users, it'll be 250 Rand for that client. If you assign it to all 10, then each one of them will get a cost. All right, but yeah. Sorry, maybe I misunderstood the question. But the key thing is that if you've got say 50 to 100 user, a typical MSP, if they're capturing Microsoft licenses, 50 to 100 user, you're billing about 70 grand, 50 to 70 grand. Okay, so the cost of 350 is nothing. What you bill that to your clients, if you're showing them app stuff, the reality is that we know that once this starts to roll out, clients will prefer it. So the question then becomes, if you're remaining on email support and someone comes and shows them chat-based support with this kind of functionality, the chance of losing that client go up dramatically. So this is how we need to stay in this. But we absolutely categorically believe this is the direction it'll head, and therefore we need to be playing at that level. So that's how we do it. Again, so you can onboard it slowly. I'm not going to ask you to like throw the baby out with the bathwater. You take 2-3 clients, you trial it, see if it works. Even if one resists, then just don't add it. You keep email support for them, whatever ticketing system you're currently using. But that's ultimately, so the onboarding is very clean. It's totally customer centric. So just make it work for you as much as possible. And then obviously we, for those people who are current Badjr clients, you know this, we are aggressively on those WhatsApp groups asking for feedback. All of the products that we built today have come from our February query, where we said to all our clients, hey guys, here's a poll. What do you want us to build? Every single one of them that we built, and that's how we do things. So if you're looking for features inside the chat system or inside the on-site management system, whatever it is, we'll build it because we want to build stuff that matters in the workplace and solves real problems that are experienced on the ground. All right. That's the Badjr Interact part. Any questions there before we just move on to rounding off? All right. So we spoke about these 3 tiers, and I wanted to talk about what's going on, Daniel. I wanted to talk about why the last one is going to be a thing, which is AI. So AI systems are quite interesting in that people think that they're going to replace humans. And I don't think they are. If you guys have ever gone onto a website and chatted with a bot, the first thing I do, and I don't know if you guys are the same, is just type the magic word, which is agent. And it disconnects you from the bot and connects you to a human, because the bot is useless. And AI is going to, and it feels like you're talking to AI. So where we believe it's going to be going is that AI is going to be assist in human interaction. It's never going to be the one that does the human interaction. So in order to move towards that future, we need to get our data in order, because it's garbage in, garbage out. If you're asking AI to scrape through thousands of emails of repeated information and signatures and whatever to get pertinent information about trends and historic fixes to current problems and that sort of thing, you're going to get crap answers back. Whereas if you start capturing your information in a very clean way, everything's structured, so your FAQs, what services are assigned, what the contents of chats, what the backwards and forwards were, what issue they relate to, and you start putting that into your own AI, and that's where we're going to get to, then all of a sudden, the AI is prompting the technician saying, okay, guys, it looks like you experienced this problem 3 weeks ago. It's the same issue. Last time you solved it like this, try that. So it really starts, or you've got an FAQ around this, do it this way. And so the technician is all of a sudden, his skills are augmented by this knowledge. And we spoke about that, what services are able and are enabled for that client and that sort of thing. So we believe that's where the AI is going to happen. Also, if it's watching the chat, it can see and sense that things are getting heated. So it'll escalate before it gets to become a crisis. If your technician gets annoyed by a customer and starts being passive aggressive, AI can pick up that kind of tone and warn someone. It's like, guys, this is getting a bit heated. Can a senior technician come in here? It'll give you summaries of tickets. Yeah, the ticket took 3 days, it was backwards and forward, but in the end, this is the solution and this is how we solved it. So that kind of, now you try and do that with current email ticketing system and it'll be an absolute nightmare. So this is why we believe, we believe where the future of AI will actually sit in that. And then obviously once the information's all nicely captured and fed in a clean way to the AI, you can start to build trends. What issues are we experiencing? Which ISPs are having problems? You'll be able to categorically say that Bitco is a crap ISP, not because you think so, but because that's the thing and I don't pick on Bitco, I like them, I'm just picked the name out the head, I'm sorry about that. But the point is that they will know that that is actually fundamentally on the ground a problematic ISP. And so you can guide your clients away from that or don't resell them or whatever it might be. So this is ultimately where we're going to end up in the AI space. So I think that covers just about everything in terms of the way we see the future developing and providing you guys a bit of a roadmap of where we're heading. The question I think ultimately ends up is that, and this is a question for you, is that are we heading in the right direction or are we not? This is a question to you. I believe we are. And what are you guys doing to equip for AI in the future is my next question. Why do you avoid it? Can I ask that question? Yeah.
You want to, like I said, you want a lot of answers. A lot of
So what the way we view that exact thing is that I agree with you entirely. But AI is a great way of informing people who can then help other people. And that's the view we take on it. We don't believe it'll take a long time for me to get there where we're saying, well, the system will have an AI that will automatically respond to your clients. I don't think that's where we want to go as a society. I also don't think it's where our clients want us to go. Maybe AI does get that good, but I'm not a huge believer. But regardless of that, the immediate value is informing and keeping your technicians aware of their options, and what they can do, and reminding them, hey, this problem, and if it has knowledge of how to solve specific problems, to prompt your technician, try this, try that. Because then it'll take your technician who can currently solve 4 issues a day, you can solve now 10, 12, and 15. And that means that your effectively your margins increase. And if you're providing additional services like making sure you capture every single spend that your client makes in the IT space by being on the ball and be able to effectively move information around to the relevant departments as fast as possible, you're capturing all that spend. So your margins increase. For what would be considered, if you go to the open market, remember this is a South African product, so we bill at South African prices. Every other product that even remotely comes close to what we're doing here will be dollar based, and then you're dying. And there's no ways you can put up the prices here. There's no ways you'll get anywhere near at that cost. So that's the end result. That's the sales pitch. So come on board. By the way, those prices are how we bill to you. If you feel you can bill to your client at 10 times it, if you go. So that's your wholesale rate. Just on that billing, so currently you get billed per live badger in the field. If you choose to have no badges, you don't want the devices themselves, you just want the management system, you can now deploy sites without badges at all. Obviously, there's no live telemetry coming back from the sites, there's no monitoring, obviously, because there's no device on site, whatever. But you can just then manage your client base with all the documentation and obviously the on-site system and the support system and all that sort of stuff. You can manage without having any badges. So badges are no longer a requirement to be part of the system. If you're happy with whatever sonic firewall that you're paying for your nose for, then you can do that. But we believe you could do it cheaper with a badger, but that's our own personal thing. And as we build out the Guardian, then we're starting to achieve parity with Sonic and FortiGate and a lot of the mid-tier kind of functionality that they offer as well at a completely different price point. But having said that, after I've pitched Badjr like that, is that you can run your infrastructure without the Badjr itself, but we just don't feel like there's any benefit to doing that. But that's up to you. Anything else? Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for paying attention. Demos are available. Please, if you want a site-based demo, like we come to your site, we do it there. We will give you free badges to install at clients, and we'll come and assist you in installation of those badges. So please just get in contact with us if you want to have a look at the tech, play around with it, whatever. Each badge that goes in is free for a month by default. So you can do that, but there's also ways you can deploy it internally in your organization at no cost permanently as an internal Badjr. There's that facility as well. So you can really get to grips with the tech and play with it at your leisure in whatever way you guys seem is useful to you. All right. So they're over there. There's a couple of renditions of it. But we deploy in most existing MikroTiks, except for the really low range ones. But it really depends on the size of the site and whatever. So at certain user counts, we recommend certain hardware. But we're not in the business of selling hardware. We do sell branded hardware, and we do co-branding with a lot of our clients. So when you go into their rack, you see Badjr and then their brand, which is quite lacquer, because if they ever get rid of you, they can't really get rid of that, because the badges typically, once they don't come out, even if the MSP swaps. So it's quite a nice branding opportunity as well. So there's that. But like I said, for those people who've got 100 MikroTiks in the field, we're not in the business of selling hardware. Hopefully I've given you guys something to think about. Yeah. Oh, otherwise have snacks. enjoy, chat with us a bit. We go from there. Thanks, guys.